Well, Oklahoma got their man. They got Brent Venables. Congratulations, Oklahoma. I think you probably made probably one of the best hires long term for the future of Oklahoma football. Now, the only question I have here going forward is this: will there be any backbiting behind the scenes with Bob Stoops and some of the administration? Because as you know, when Venables was here last time, he departed on not so nice terms with Bob Stoops. So I'd like to know, and I'd be interested to find out if going forward, if Brent Venables, if this can be his program going forward. Let's talk about it. Boys and girls in sporting land, this is JPC. I am the outlaw of college football, and this is and always will be, without a shadow of a doubt, the home of the Common Joe and Common Side in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. That's right. Now, getting right to it, class. Today, I'd like to talk about the great hire, in my opinion, of Brent Venables. To me, so far, the top two hires, surprisingly to some, is Brent Venables and Billy Napier. Now, I know that a lot of these other teams made big splash hires like LSU and the Trojans out there in Los Angeles. But overall, I think in the long-term future that Oklahoma did the best thing for this program. Now, going forward, I do have some questions. But before I get to that, I would like to ask you guys and gals to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Subscriptions are most important. They keep me motivated, keep me in the good graces of YouTube, and they bring in more of you common Joes and Sallies in the know to put us in the know. Now, let's get back to it. Bob Stoops. There were some issues with Bob Stoops and Brent Venables back in the day. Brent Venables was here from 1999 to 2011. He was co-defensive coordinator for the first 4 or 5 years with Mike Stoops, the brother of one Bob Stoops. Okay. Then Mike Stoops leaves and decides he wants to become a head coach. He goes to Arizona and he basically shits the bed. Mike Stoops comes back. Bob Stoops says, hey, we're going to make my brother co-defensive coordinator again, Brent, and you're going to like it. That's the way I got it. I ain't trying to piss nobody off, but I always thought that was a dumbass move by Bob Stoops. Because after that, when Brent Venables left, that's when Oklahoma's defenses started smelling like a fresh baby diaper. I'm just calling it like I see it. So they bring Mike Stoops back in, and the defenses start taking a little bit of a nosedive. And basically, Bob Stoops leaves after the spring game in a pretty suspicious manner, in my opinion. But I won't go into all that. I mean, because there's some rumors floating around about Lincoln Riley as well, as far as the womanizing thing. And there was some stuff said about Bob as well, but we won't go into that. Bob Stoops left, and Lincoln Riley got the job. Now, if Bob doesn't bring back his brother and do some, what's it called, nepotism with his brother, and if I was Brent, I would have been pissed too. I'm like, look, dude, your brother left, took a head coaching job somewhere else. Bring him back, and then you automatically make him co-defensive coordinator, or maybe even defensive coordinator. That didn't make much sense, Bob. I know he's your brother and you love your brother, man, but you got to be a businessman about this. And yes, Bob he stepped up and tried to come through as the hero in all this when Lincoln Riley left like he left. And Bob has stepped in as the interim coach, and obviously it seems like some of the difference have been put aside. But if you noticed, it took a while to iron out the details of this whole thing. Brent Venables should have been here at least 3 or 4 days ago. Which makes me think that there might be something, still a little something there between him and Bob. He wanted to get it straight before he came. Bob stepped in as the interim coach, and a lot of people is going to be pissed off at me saying all this. But he stepped in as the interim coach because Bob He really likes the attention sometimes, and he has a love for Oklahoma. I got to give him that. But at the same time, I'm just hoping this ain't one of those Phil Fulmer situations. At Tennessee, Phil Fulmer won a national championship for Tennessee back in 1998, I think. And because he won that one national championship, even after he was dismissed and asked to resign at Tennessee, he was still in the backdrop the whole time, meddling and undermining people because he had this scorned attitude about himself. And to this day, he continues to screw Tennessee football. He came back as a special advisor to the AD. They ended up running that guy off out of the building while he wasn't there, by the way, so they couldn't run him out of the building, but he was in L.A. trying to get Mike Leach for Tennessee. And they ended up getting Jeremy Pruitt. And they was down to a couple of other unknown assistants because Phil Fulmer had undermined the AD, took the AD job, and decided he wanted him a puppet. And rewind a little bit just to fill y'all in why I say that about Phil Fulmer. He did the same thing as an assistant when Johnny Majors was the head coach in the early 90s. Johnny Majors went in the hospital. Phil Fulmer undermined him while he was in the hospital and ended up taking his job. And that's what I'm worried about with Bob Stoops. Yes, it was admirable in how he stepped in and stepped up right when Lincoln left. But I wouldn't be so quick as to say, pat Bob on the back and make him out to be this big-ass hero. Because my thing is, Brent Venables should have been the coach at Oklahoma when Lincoln Riley took it over. If Brent Venables hadn't been insulted by Bob Stoops by telling him, hey, I'm bringing my brother back in, and he's not only going to be an assistant on staff, but he's going to be a co-defensive coordinator, Brent, and if you don't like it, you get to stepping. Well, Brent did get to stepping, and he stepped over to Clemson and made a big success out of himself over at Clemson. And Mike Stoops did exactly what we thought Mike Stoops would do. His defenses stunk. And Bob ends up resigning. And Lincoln Riley ends up taking over. And Lincoln Riley goes through a defensive coordinator and then he has to hire Alex Grinch, and you know the rest of the story. So all I'm saying here for Oklahoma is I think that this guy, Brent Venables, should have been the coach a long time ago, if not for some nepotism by Bob. Bob, like I said, stood up. He's been admirable. Okay, I keep saying that, but there's something there to me. Now, I can't really prove it, but there's something there. But Brent Venables, to me, if they leave this guy alone, if they don't have Bob Stoops meddling in the background and Joe Castiglione or whatever his name is, and some of the boosters out there meddling in the program and telling Brent that he doesn't have full control, I think this could be the time that Oklahoma re-arises as being feared. Now, Oklahoma's been in the playoff, and they've been feared somewhat, especially by the Big 12. They still dominated the Big 12, even with Lincoln Riley. But I'm talking about being feared as far as both sides of the ball. And a lot of people considered Oklahoma an easy target in the playoffs because they couldn't stop anybody. Yeah, Oklahoma's going to get their 28, 31 points, but we're going to score 50 or 60 on them because they don't take defense seriously. That's how Oklahoma's been viewed the past 5 to 10 years, even under Bob Stoops at the end. So, I'm not talking about getting back to winning football like the Bob Stoops era, which was a decent era. I'm talking about getting back to winning and being feared. Being feared like Alabama is now, and like Barry Switzer was back in the 80s. And I think he might have coached into the early 90s. I'm not sure about that. But back in the 80s, Barry Switzer and Oklahoma were feared. And that's what I think Brent Venables can do if he's let to be done. If they let him have full control of the program, I think he can bring back those feared days of Barry Switzer. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals tell me what you think about the situation. If you think that Bob Stoops was just being admirable, or if you think he's going to be a little meddlesome like Phil Fulmer, and if you think maybe, just maybe, they need to back off and let Brent Venables have the keys to the castle, or if you think that Brent needs to be the coach, but he needs a little bit of hands-on guidance until he gets his program set. Drop in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.